from the Facebook group. Here's the first question. All right, friends, what are some tips on how to not be so introverted? I'm a brand new youth pastor at a church that has about 50 to 60 kids each week for youth group. I've only been doing this for about 4 months, so there's obviously going to be a lot of growing and relationship building to come. But sometimes I just feel super awkward when it comes to small talk. I don't want students to feel like I don't want to be in a conversation with them. I just suck at small talk. LOL is what he wrote. Do I just embrace the awkward or push through, or are there ways to get my introvertedness to subside? All right, guys. How would we help this I'm guessing young man to help him be less awkward around the youths?
The Utes.
I mean, part of being the youth pastor is being awkward, right?
Sure.
That's par for the course.
Come to terms with the fact that you're not cool. You're just not.
That's
Lean
probably the
into
best
the dad
advice.
jokes. Be a dork, and yeah, it's fine. The kids really don't care how cool you are. They care that you care, but they don't care if you're cool.
But if you try to be something that you are not, they will notice and they will call you out for it.
Hello, fellow youths.
Teenagers are ruthless.
They
in
are
that department.
savage, bro.
If I were you, I would lean into it. Maybe some talking points would be good that you could just have him and ask this set of questions that will help guide a conversation if you're really just not great at starting a conversation. But as far as the introverted extrovertedness, I think you just need to know that, hey, at the end of the day, after youth group, you're probably going to be more drained than an extrovert might be. So I think knowing what's going to drain you and what's going to fill you is going to be really important for longevity in ministry. So knowing that you're an introvert, that's good. You don't need to change that, but you need to know what's going to fill me because I'm probably going to be drained after large group gatherings.
I was totally expecting, Tim, when you said like come up with a set of questions, that you're going to have like a chat GPT list of questions to.
Certainly will, but in about 3
Yeah.
seconds.
What a missed opportunity, huh?
You know,
It's coming.
well, and also to add to all that, it's okay to let the kids know. You know what I'm saying? And you could do it in a creative way. Like in your youth group session, you can have like, instead of game time or whatever, you can have, let's help whatever your name is not be awkward and shy. And then you call a student up, you sit on the stage, the student asks you awkward questions that you have to answer. It's a funny way of letting the whole youth group know that you
You need
are
approval of those questions.
Well, yeah, okay, but it's a funny way of letting the students know that you are kind of awkward and that you're trying to figure out how to be around them. But it's funny because when they get you on stage, knowing now that you're kind of awkward and shy, and they're asking you questions, it makes you their hero because you're willing to step into the awkward with them and be funny with it. So that'd be something like super practical on the ground that you can do to introduce that concept. But then also, just stop being awkward. Or just stop being shy. That's it. You know, right? It's pretty easy. Just no. It's hard. I struggle with that too in certain settings. Mine necessarily isn't with students, but sometimes I will get around some, you know, how in the average city you have affluent people and then you have extremely affluent people. You know what I'm talking about? Sometimes when I get around the extremely affluents, I struggle with that. So one thing I do is in my mind, I think about this concept of entrance ramps. When it comes to conversations, what's your entrance ramp for the conversation? So when you're listening, where's your commonality that you can say something? One good thing about introverts that I actually covet is y'all are way better at never being accused of being all about your own self and selfish and talking about yourself all the time. I know extroverts, several of us, I know I've been accused of like, Dale talks about himself a lot. So I actually think you can lean into your strengths a little bit. Be an amazing listener. Like that is super okay. Actually, that'll probably carry you further in ministry than doing what I'm doing right now and talking too much.
I was going to piggyback off of kind of what Tim said too. Like if you know you're introverted, I know that I'm like an introverted or an extroverted introvert. So in the right settings, I can, you know, I'm personable, but I need like downtime after that. So I'm assuming that, let's say your youth group's on Wednesday night, you might want to talk to your leadership about maybe being able to come in late on Thursday morning, give yourself some space to just like decompress. Also, if there's 50 or 60 kids in your youth group, dear God, please tell me there are other adults helping you, because that's a pretty big youth group. So if that's the case, I'm going to guess there's like a veteran youth leader or two who already have great relationships with the kids. Lean into their like relational capital. It doesn't have to all be about you getting over your awkwardness and like having all the relationship with the kids, you can just be the like teacher upfront guy for a while those things get built over time. And then just like a really practical thing, one thing that helped me was like I just would drink a coffee before youth group and get my energy level a little bit elevated so that some of that awkward desire I have to like kind of shrink into the corner would kind of go away because I was a little bit more hype than I would normally be. So maybe that's a thing for you, maybe not, but that's to me that's like a real practical thing is just like make sure that the other youth leaders are kind of like helping you manage the relationships with the other students.
Can I offer just one more thing? Because Jeff, you hit really tangible on the ground. Practically, if you were to just grab a couple of students who you know, maybe 3 or 4, maybe even 2 or 3, and say, "Can we get coffee or hot chocolate, whatever the deal is, once a week?" and just sit down and talk with them an hour, you will be surprised. You'll be more exposed to their world, which is a lot different than our world, right? Growing up, just being able to sit down 1-on-1 with 2 or 3, let them know, "Hey, I'm sitting down with you because I really want to get to know y'all better as your new student pastor, but also like I want to be able to relate." You can just be honest. And man, if you sit down, that's something I've had to do. I used to, as a younger youth pastor, I struggled with parents. I don't know if any of y'all ever struggle with parents, especially when you're in like your younger 20s. So what I started doing was having coffee with parents like once a week. I picked 2 or 3 men in my youth group whose fathers would sit down with me. Bro, just sitting down with these fathers for 2-3 years, man, it helped me talk to parents. So a lot of times we think that like it's got to happen in the big group setting, but you could do it off the student ministry clock of when your time, youth gatherings are. Meet with them off the clock and in small groups and be open about it. And I think you will find you'll get a lot of mileage with talking with people when you talk to them in a more, comfortable setting.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing as Dell. I don't think I ever struggled with being insecure or uncomfortable talking to students, but I definitely had a lot of insecurities talking to parents. And I think the reality was just like I was in my mid-20s and these people were upwards to 10 to 15 years older than me, and I had like a naive view of like my own self and what I thought they would be interested in. But I think this principle applies to them as much as it applies to students. I forgot if it was Andrew or Tim just mentioned this. They're like, it's not about how cool you are, but how you care about them. And if you can, like, when you spend time with these students, just like remember some facts of their own interest, whether it's like, hey, this person.
How did the baseball game go?
Exactly. I was gonna say sports for boys.
How was the play? Because
musical theater.
Know what they're into and just ask because they want to talk about themselves anyway.
Exactly. And like there was, I remember there was one kid in my youth group, man, 10 years ago. He's probably like 24, 23 now, who was like really, really distant from me. And like, he didn't connect because he didn't play sports. He didn't like hip hop music or anything like that. And I was struggling to figure out how to connect with him. And I remember just asking like, what do you do for fun? And he's super into like, this tabletop game called Warhammer. And it's just like, I think it's just like a version of, it's like, isn't that in the same vein as like Dungeons and Dragons?
It's expensive Dungeons and Dragons.
It's expensive. Yeah. And I remember when he told me that, I like went on Wikipedia and I Googled like some information about it. And I just asked him a couple questions about Warhammer. That kid like became my best friend. He like wanted, every time he saw me, he talked about Warhammer. And guess what? I did not care about Warhammer, but it allowed him to.
But you cared about him?
But I cared about him. And so I would listen to him talk for like 5 minutes straight about what he did in Warhammer and some figure that he painted or whatever. And like, that kid was bought in because of that. So you get to know the kid's interest. Tim, what did our AI overlords tell us?
Here is your ChatGPT prompt for our friend out there. What questions, just type this in, what questions could an introverted youth pastor ask teenagers to help generate conversations? And it will instantly give you 30 great questions broken down into several different categories, starting with fun and lighthearted, then moving into hobbies and interests, friendships and relationships, school and life experiences, and then faith and spiritual conversations.
Give us 1 or 2 questions.
Sure. For the fun and lighthearted, this one's super easy. Right when students are walking in, hey, what was the best part of your week? Give me a highlight. In my house, we call it highs, lows. Give me one high, give me one low. When you want to get a little bit more serious, maybe friendships and relationships, you could ask them, hey, who do you usually hang out with at school? Or in your opinion, what do you think makes a good friend? That could generate a solid conversation. Or you could go into school a little bit. What was your favorite class this week? Least favorite class? If you could change one thing about your school, what would it be? Faith and spiritual. How about what's something about God or faith that's been on your mind lately? Any spiritual questions that you could generate there? Kind of cool. And then there's some bonus land questions, some either ors just for funsies. Summer or winter, video games or board games. Like those types of questions could generate what are they interested in real fast.
Actually, I was going to say that was my go-to is try to get, so if I had a group of students in front of me, I would get them to debate about something. So I'd be like, all right, no, for real though, who has the better French fries? Is it Chick-fil-A or is it McDonald's? And they'll like start fighting each other.
But really, you only need to,
awesome.
I would say memorize 3 of these questions per week and you'll be good. You'll be able to talk to half a dozen students easily. And looking at this list, I'm like, man, as a youth pastor, I would have sent this to my small group leaders and said, hey guys, if you're struggling with conversations when students are walking in, because as Jeff said, you should not be the only guy who can communicate with students. Like there should be others in the room who are also building those relationships. So I would share this list with my small group leaders who would have probably been like, this is gold and would have ran with this.
I think in general, it's a fake it till you make it situation. One of my go-tos is in Mere Christianity. C.S. Lewis has the quote about,
It's great.
If I find myself, wondering if I really love God, I find that if I act as if I do, and I do the things that I would do if I really loved God, I will come to find that I do love God and that it applies to loving your neighbor or whatever. So what would you do if you weren't an introvert? Who would you go up and talk to?
Wow.
And then do
great.
those things for a couple weeks and you'll be fine. We, in our house, my wife is a special ed teacher and we have some boys who are a little bit neurospicy. So we talk about, it's called cocktail speech. And it's here are the 3 or 4 topics that they pull out in awkward situations. I think youth pastors need one of these. Think of Michael Scott, Somehow I Manage, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one chapter entitled Gum. Everybody loves the guy that gives them a piece of gum.
Everybody.
Be that guy. Hey, did you get new shoes? There's a middle school boy in your youth group that is coming with new shoes this week, I promise. Dude, sweet haircut. We said that to Jeff today when we started recording. He lit up like a Christmas tree.
I
He's
did.
still smiling.
Hey
Notice.
Tim, did you get new shoes?
He did.
I might have gotten some new shit.
So notice, you pay attention, be observant, and it's the on-ramp that Del was talking about. So what can get you into a conversation, but also where can you back out and let them talk about themselves? Because
That's good.
just from a psychological standpoint, once they start talking, they expend more energy. When you expend more energy, endorphins are released, and you're like, wow, I feel really happy because I released endorphins. When really it was I expended energy when I was talking, but I feel like I had a great conversation. So get them talking.
Andrew, that is so solid. Somebody once told me, if you can get somebody talking about yourself, you made a friend. And most people want to talk about themselves. That's why the Tim's questions are phenomenal. Now, the one student I've heard that's tough, and maybe y'all can shine some light on this. When I first came to the church I'm at now, I stepped into the student ministry there, and half of the youth group are introverts. And the thing, if you've ever been around a true introvert, sometimes if you're an extrovert, you think they're having a bad time when they're just sitting there, but they're actually having a good time. And I had to really get around that because sometimes the introverts, especially when you're talking with a student and you're introverted, you're both struggling to have that conversation. I'd love to hear if y'all have any tips on like how do you have a conversations with introverted students who may not know how to do it as well. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about that.
I just want to go back to what Andrew said and ask, do you give your kids cocktails? What did I hear there?
Cocktail shrimp.
Cocktail shrimp.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a different.
Del, some people just want to be sat with. Like you don't have to talk with them to sit with them.
Yeah.
Fair. That's good.
Some of the closest friends I have in my life, we just sit and stare at our phones together, and it's magical.
Amazing.
It's not actually true, but
I mean, I think even one principle that is true is introverts are not that they hate people and don't want to be around people. They just don't get energy off of being with people. Does that make sense? Introverts still like compliments. Introverts
Yeah,
still
I'm tired after I'm around a group of people.
Yeah.
Like most of the time.
Yeah. I think introverts are like anybody. They still like compliments. They still like want people to know them and be into them. They might just not care if it's with 100 people. Does that make sense? Like they prefer like just one-on-one or they don't necessarily need to be around people as much as other people. So I would say that like a lot of the feedback we just gave still applies. You just gotta be mindful that like that kid might not like be uber eager to be like going to a group setting with other boys or other girls or whatever to have a chat with them. But I'll say this: the complimenting the shoes or the hair is really good. Just be careful with if you're an adult guy.
Yeah, that's a middle
complimenting
school
girls.
boy.
Yeah.
Trend. You're like, girl, those jeans are working. Don't do that. Avoid
Not
that one.
advisable.
Bro,
Yeah.
every time jumps right over the line.
I was giving an example of what not to do.
Good,
Hey, cool Crocs, man. That's what you want.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like just be careful when you're complimenting like clothes and like even like hair. Like just be careful when you're going cross gender. Okay, just be mindful of that. Yep.
Hang on, I've got one more that has made a lasting impact.
Cannot wait for this.
The year was, I think, 2014. I was teaching a confirmation class, and it was a really awkward group because, as many confirmation classes, depending on your denominational background, there were like 5 kids that were not at all involved with the youth group. But of course, dad was an elder because he had a nice car. And then several kids that were super involved in the youth group, but parents didn't actually go to the church. And so it was a very odd mix. And it was time for new glasses. And I had gotten my Warby Parker, shout out to Warby Parker. They will like mail you glasses to try on, and then you pick them out. And I let kids choose my glasses. It took an hour when we were supposed to be talking about sanctification or something. And a group of girls that didn't like each other and never talked, like got together to make sure that they were the coalition of the willing to vote for whatever glasses they want. And I've been wearing rounded blue glasses ever since. And I have done 4 of those girls' weddings now, that they are in their early 20s. So it was a thing that it was let them get advice from them. Hey, I'm struggling with this. What do you think? And give them some ownership, whether it be about the ministry. Hey, should we do this activity or that activity? Or I want to buy my wife a present. Should it be this necklace or this bracelet? That's the kind of thing that you can do with girls where, the hey, nice hair, nice shoes might not work as well.
Yeah, I understood your statement now. With like the girls in your youth group, letting them choose things is actually safer than the guys, because guys will troll.
Yes.
Guys will be like, hey, Pastor Andrew, you should wear a turquoise shirt when you preach next Sunday. And it's like, you just want to see me look stupid.
You just want to see me dressed like Tim.
I'll give this one last caveat. We'll move on to the next question. Everything we just talked about applies to adults as well. So like if you're like a younger pastor in your 30s and you're like, how do I connect with the 60-year-old member of my church? Get to know them, find other interests, and remember their interests. Does that make sense? Like all this stuff that we just all the stuff we just discussed applies to adults as well. Also,
be ready to meet with them at weird times, like the middle of the afternoon. They're not doing early morning coffee. They're not coming out at night, but 2:00 in the afternoon, hey, they'll meet with you.
Yeah, and the same thing like last time with Andrew said, don't compliment an older woman's jeans either. That's not appropriate. So
no one needed to say that.
Yoga at the community center is paying off, Betsy.
Okay.